Hello and welcome to AZAAZ, Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho. This is our weekly show where we go through all the questions that you ask us on YouTube and over in club.zenatta.com. Kind of give you our take, best practices, responses, sometimes confused looks. You never know. This is episode number 8. We are joined by a special guest today, Lucas Santana. He's one of our most senior developers, kind of a resident Zoho genius. And of course, also joined by Josh Oliver and Greg Belknap. And without any further ado, let us get into our first question. Alrighty, so this one is a question here from Club Zenatta. This is over in the Q&A that we do for this very show. So in this one, John Oliver asks, starting to set up projects, Zoho projects for our organization, and wondering about communication differences between using comments within a task versus click integrated with the project. Wondering what you find is best for communication and keeping up with project discussions and questions. Seems like comments with tasks have been around a while, and now the click integration has been added more recently. Not sure which I should recommend to our team, or if some message types should be in comments versus others might need to be in click. This is a good question, John. So for viewers or listeners who haven't used the click integration before, what it does essentially creates a channel in click for each individual project where you can do a lot of that communication. But I guess for me, and this really comes down to opinion, like John, if I were you, I would get maybe some model users and like show them both, right? And kind of see what they think. For me, I've normally found keeping it within the project to be a little bit better. Mostly just because then you have that like chain of communication as part of a task, right? And someone kind of pick it up without going out to the click integration. But anyone kind of have another opinion on that?
I mean, it kind of depends on the number of projects too, because you don't want to flood your click with hundreds of channels based on one for each project. So maybe if you have a small number of projects, click might work great, but if you're dealing with a lot of projects, I would probably recommend sticking within projects for that communication, either as task comments or maybe even opening up the forum or feed inside the project to manage those communications. All right. Next one here comes from Nick, posted in Club Zenatta, just a general discussion here. So Nick asks, has anyone found success using or configuring the pre-built POS app in Zoho Creator for an in-person retail business using Zoho Inventory? We'd love to get something put together for this that integrates with actual inventory numbers with the POS, Square syncs transactions to inventory, but not the items, if I understand that correctly. Would love for it to work end-to-end and adjust inventory from the system, integrate with financials, work with a barcode scanner for serial numbers, etc. We're also using QuickBooks Online over Zoho Books for now, so that's another consideration. Would love to hear if you had any success with this. So there's a few different options. Nick mentions there is a pre-built POS app you can download in Creator, but it's very basic, and honestly, I don't even consider it a POS app. It doesn't actually you can't take any payments through it without modifying it. So if you did want to use the POS Creator app, that's a template from Zoho, you will need to do a lot of configuration to actually make it accept payments through either Stripe or Square. Now, that is certainly possible. You could utilize that Creator app and make a bunch of integrations to your QuickBooks Online, or really, if you're going to do this, I would say stick with Zoho. If you're going to do QuickBooks Online, there's other POS systems you could probably look into. But if you want to stick within Zoho, then you could consider using a Creator app. And then if you wanted to do a Creator app, it's going to create a lot. It's going to mean a lot of extra customization to make that work. To be honest, my recommendation is probably a custom button just within Zoho Inventory. Now, if Zoho, you're listening to this, please just set up a POS functionality in Inventory. It would be so nice if there was a way to just accept payment right through Inventory, but there isn't right now. And so we've had some clients who needed this as well. And our implementation was essentially a custom button on the invoice inside of inventory, where you create your invoice you go into inventory and you create your invoice. And after creating that invoice, you would see a little custom button at the top of the detail page. And then from there, you can click send to card reader. So if you're using Square or Stripe, there would need to be an API call to one of those services that would actually make that connection and send the amount to the reader. But it is certainly doable, and that's probably the easiest way to do it. So yes, you could use a creator app. If you're going to use a creator app, I would probably start from scratch and just build it out entirely, which is going to take a lot of time. My recommendation is to just use Zoho Inventory with the custom button that says send a reader, which invokes one API call. And then you'll need to use Zoho Flow for when that payment is actually received to update that invoice and mark it as paid. Long answer, it is possible. If you have any questions, reach out to us and we can certainly help you build that out.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a while before Zoho is able to create like a full POS system, because then we're talking about adding like real hardware to something that, you know, Zoho actually would have to, like, it's more than just adding more code. It would actually be finding a supplier to build card readers or, you know, NFC tap, adapters or whatever, and then shipping them all over the place.
I don't think it would be that hard. I don't think it would be that hard because really it's just an integration to Stripe. Stripe is one managing the card readers, and we just need that integration.
Zoho would want to try to develop their own card reader.
Oh, you think so? Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean,
I think that they would be seeking to create their own card reader at some point. I don't think they're going to do something hard. Go ahead, Tyler.
They do like to do everything themselves. It wouldn't shock me.
True.
They do. Yeah, it's in-house.
I think Zoho should stick with the software and then let Stripe and Square and Shopify do the hardware. But who knows? If they wanted to integrate it, or if they could just integrate it with Stripe, it would be so much simpler and well integrated. The one thing, so my solution earlier, that only works for desktop. If you're using an iPad for your POS system, it will not work. You can't do custom buttons on iPads, unfortunately. So.
Alrighty, let's get to this next question. This one is from Cameron over on a pretty recent webinar we did on Z Portals. Z Portal is essentially a platform that allows you to create a portal that looks into a variety of different Zoho applications and get it on your website. So Cameron asks, love seeing all these new features and use cases. Do you have a potential launch date on the Zoho projects integration? It's kind of one of the few applications that's missing from Z Portals. We actually reached out to the Z Portals team on this one to see if we could get some information on that. And they let us know that the proposed launch is going to be in Q3. So we should not have to wait too much longer, Cameron. It should be coming very, very soon to a portal near you.
And this one comes from Club Z, from Inan Farid, asking, I'm struggling with Zoho Desk departments. I do not want to show and give rights to anyone to assign and to show unassigned tickets except to the admin. Can anyone tell me how I can restrict users from seeing unassigned tickets? Because there are just 3 options I am attaching. So, fun story on this question, it actually already got answered in Club Z. Just another one of our Club Z users already answered Nam's question. So, full disclosure, this solution that I'm going to show you comes from Ifeanyi, who knew exactly where to go for this. It really comes down to, and I've got a screen share for it, going to the settings and then under users and control, selecting permissions, and then profiles. And, by default, there's the 3 profiles of support administrator, light agent, and agent. You're going to want to create a new profile that'll kind of become your new standard for your agents. And once you do that, you have the option to turn on or off the ability for those agents to view any unassigned tickets. So that's pretty much it. This one's a nice, easy one. Made even easier by our own Club Z community, just answering the questions for us.
Beating us to the punch. I love that.
So next one. This one is from Joe Morris, and he asked on Club Z, I need to integrate Substack into Zoho. Any help? And the short and long of this one is that you can't. So Substack doesn't have API. They don't have an open API anyway. So unfortunately, you won't be able to do the integration. What you need to look for when you're trying to integrate stuff with Zoho is for third-party apps with open API. That will help a lot with the integration.
No, I don't think I've ever used it.
Substack is a
AZAAZ.
subscription. Yeah, it's a subscription handling. Yeah,
Got it.
subscription handling.
But there's
But
still subscriptions.
for social application. They probably have like other services that can do pretty much the same thing, and that we'll be able to integrate. So, yeah,
Got it.
Substack.
It's always odd to me when we see applications that don't have open APIs. Seems like such like the standard that everything has one and they all work pretty much the same, right? Which makes our lives a lot more workable. Yeah, it's
And then
odd.
even
Odd to
weirder
find
when
one
one of those
pretty
apps
popular
is a
app without
Zoho
it.
app.
right? But the
What
thing
did you say,
is,
Greg?
every app already uses API internally anyway. So I don't know why they don't like make it outward facing. Would make
I would
life a
say
lot
that it's
easier.
even weirder when one of those apps that doesn't have an open API is a Zoho app. Forms. Survey.
Zoho Learn.
Learn.
Right.
Alrighty, next question here. This one comes from Beat Z, longtime community member. You're doing well, Beat. Asked over in the Q&A for AZAAZ on Club Zenatta. It's kind of a follow-up question. Beat has been on a search here, pun intended, to find the best way to search for certain data across Zoho. Last week, we showed search.zoho.com, which is like a pretty interesting way to search across a lot of different applications. But this week, it's kind of looking at specifically Zoho Mail. So full question is, the search that we mentioned is helpful in some cases, but doesn't always allow us to filter by an account. So like in Zoho Desk, we can use filters. In WorkDrive, you can go to a specific client folder. And so the question here is, how would you search for emails related to an account using Zoho Mail? I can filter to see only emails from a contact, but if I want to find all emails related to an account, I could not do it. So Beat, there's kind of two ways to do this. If you have Zoho Mail integrated to Zoho CRM, and the people that you're mailing are all contacts underneath that account, then you should be able to go to the account view there and kind of see all of their mail rolled up, based on obviously if you have that integration set up. If not, it's pretty quick and easy to get that IMAP configured, which may solve it for you. If you're in Zoho Mail itself, there's kind of one way to do it going forward and one way to find old stuff. I would say for going forward, if you really want to categorize, you could set up what Zoho Mail calls filters and actually look at like the email domains that are coming in and apply certain tags. A lot of the consultants at Zenatta actually set that up inside of Gmail so that their client emails all go into particular little folders and buckets. And then to search, I would say just search on that domain, right? Rather than searching for an email address or a contact in mail, you could just search based on the domain portion of their email and it should pull up everything. But I'd say the easiest way is plug it into CRM, right? Because then it's just done for you. When you need to know anything, you can just go there and it'll roll up all that data for you.
Well, and Tyler, in the CRM, if you're just looking at the account, but you don't search, you can't search like email content or things like that on the account, right?
Correct.
But I guess you could, well, again, not email content, but at least another thing you could do is, if you have it integrated with the CRM, is use a CRM report, and then you can search for like particular words in a subject. You can go into advanced filters, right? And unfortunately, you would have to just go in and edit the report for each account that you wanted to look at. but you could then drill down by a singular account and then maybe like a particular subject, because it's more than just like seeing all the emails, but it's like searching specifically things in those emails that Beatsy's trying to figure out.
All right, and the next question we have is from Bodo. After watching the Zoho campaign's full product tutorial, Bodo asks, regarding response conditions, how long will the contact wait? As long until a condition is true? If so, what about delivered? So in campaigns, I'm going to actually share my screen here on this one because it's a little confusing. And it's been changed actually within the past year since I've last looked at this. So I've been playing around with this, and I think the best way to set up response conditions is actually using this email response process trigger. So email activity is an actual process trigger here. And what Bodo is asking is, between emails, like this email here is going to go out as soon as this contact enters the segment, and this email will go out. And you have a few different ways to do response conditions. And a response condition is basically where a contact is going based on their response to an email. So if they open an email, if it's not sent, if they click on an email, where is that contact going to go? What path are they going to take in this journey? And there's a few different ways you can set this up. And my recommendation is using the email activity. Previously, what you could do, and you still can do it, it's just a little misleading on how it's set up. So you could do something like this, where you can trigger the response condition straight from the email. And then here you have these actions that you can control the flow. But it's a little confusing because if you have delays for each one of these, how do you know which one is going to be considered? So let's say I wait 2 days for it to be delivered or for it to be opened, but let's say I wait 1 day for it to be delivered. Is it going to wait the 2 days or is it going to wait 1 day? Because if it's delivered, I mean, it should go pretty fast, but what if they open it 2 days later? I want them to go down this route instead of this route. So it's a little confusing to do it this way, and you don't really have much control over it. So my recommendation is to remove that response and just use a wait condition right after the email. And then you're going to wait 2 days. And then after those 2 days, you're going to check the email activity. And then in here, you actually have more conditions you can check on. So skipped, clicked on any link. So you actually have a lot more conditions you can control the path for. And then from here, you know it's going to check that email activity after 2 days. And based on whatever that email activity is at 2 days, it's going to process accordingly. And this is going to be your most sure way to control the flow. And because you're going to know what the status is at the 2 day mark, and then you can kind of push them in the path you want to go. So that's it. This is going to be the best way that I've found to manage that. And yeah, you guys have any other thoughts on that and how to manage the response conditions?
No, I think that's a nice way to do it, because then you could even stack like multiple. You could make one after 2 days, let's say, and only track clicks, and then call them like super engaged, and everyone else that's only delivered after 2 days, we wait another 3. And if they've clicked then they're like mildly engaged, like you could doing it that way really actually opens up a lot more control over what you're trying to do
actually,
with your wait conditions.
If you're going to do it that way, Tyler, I'm going to share my screen one more time. So, and if you wanted to do it that way, there's another process trigger in here called the wait condition. So what that does is, let me remove that. And then what you say is configure based on recipient activity. If the email was opened for this email, we're going to wait 2 days. And then based on that, so I know they opened it, and then I can say, oh, this one's going here. They've opened it. False. We're going to go this way. So there's also this condition or this process block to consider as well. This one, you would have a little bit more fine control over each different condition. Otherwise, if you wanted to just wait a solid 2 days and then check it right then, that's going to be the other option. So, yep, those are your options essentially.
I was going to say that I think most people would probably want to use the wait condition versus just the wait, because from campaigns that I've seen people build, if somebody clicks on something or follows a link, they usually want to respond much faster with follow up while the iron's hot, versus if we delivered something and then they opened it after 2 days, then we'll send our kind of lukewarm follow-ups to that one. But if they clicked on something, we want to jump on that.
Yep.
So the wait condition is probably what you'd want to use. Okay, this question comes to us from Dan, who watched our Zoho subscriptions full product tutorial for the 2021 webinar. Have we done one since then? Did we do one last year, Tyler?
I think so now.
Okay, well then this is the most up to date. I know this video is over a year old now. 3348, your subscription has what appears to be an editable, didn't say that right, editable quantity box. My POC/trial seems to default to 1 for everything. Is there a setting that I'm missing? And it's not a setting, but it's actually an entirely different sub product, I guess you could say. These are add-ons. So if we go to our screen share here, I've got pulled up so that people can see. This is the video that Dan is referring to, one of those classic Zenatta ones where Tyler looks like a Victorian ghost. And we have this quantity here.
How dare you?
Inside of your Zoho subscriptions products, you'll have a product. Within that, you'll have plans. And you can also have add-ons. And if you have an add-on, there you can determine what is the pricing model. Is it per unit or volume, tier, or package? And so then people will select on that checkout page what is the quantity of this pricing model that they are going to be selecting. So most likely they had just the per unit for Tyler and Brett's example there. And that is how you would add the quantity, is the particular item needs to be existing as an add-on on a plan rather than a plan in and of itself.
Subscriptions might be due for a redo, so I can stop looking like a Victorian ghost. That one is going in my box of mean comments that I'll try to forget. Moving on to our next question here before I break out into tears. This is a question asked by Nathaniel over on YouTube. Looks like asked on a video here, email workflows in Zoho campaigns 2022. That was very helpful. Thank you. I think you recorded this one, Greg, so thanks to Greg. I have a quick question. I create workflows, but I can't find how to connect them to my campaigns. I want a lead to enter a campaign and cycle through my workflow, and I track that progress through reporting. Is this possible? If so, how? So we do have a couple videos on YouTube as well, Nathaniel, about kind of entering a CRM lead into a particular workflow based on CRM data. I know, Greg, this probably was last year, I think, right? You had recorded one using tags, but you could really do it with like any CRM data that's relevant. When it comes to tracking them through that workflow, it becomes really important to have good naming conventions in the workflow emails. It's really sneaky in campaigns. There's this thing, message 0 up in the top left, and that will be the title that shows in any of your reporting on those workflow-driven emails from Zoho campaigns. So make sure to create a nice naming convention there that like standardizes how you're going to call out what workflow this is a part of and which email in the workflow it is. And then you'll be able to report on it pretty easily, likely through Zoho Analytics. Some of the reporting, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir with the rest of you guys, in campaigns on workflows is a little limited. So you can see like some of the high level data, but to really get granular, you'll probably have to pull things over to Zoho Analytics to have some fun with it.
Agreed. Unless you're Josh. Josh doesn't like to go into analytics when he doesn't have to.
I'm scared of analytics.
Yeah, so next one. Ness Semeniuk asks us in the Q&A form for AZAAZ, is it possible to have a task on every incoming email in the deal module? I know it's possible in the lead module. And the thing is, for incoming emails, you can't create tasks directly via workflow rule to a deal. The deals only show up for the outgoing emails. But so that way you can relate that. But one thing that you can do as a workaround is just create a function, the deluge function, and use the context for that. So use the context, try to link it to the deal, and that way you can create a task. It's not going to be as easy. It's going to require some custom code, but you're going to be able to do it.
So you're thinking have the workflow trigger in contacts and then run a function that looks to see if they've got an open deal. And then if they do, you can make it.
Yeah, that'll be the idea. But if they want to create tasks for every open deal, maybe they should look into Zoho Desk. Maybe that'll be like a better solution for them overall and be able to handle this.
Well, and I mean, if the whole goal is just to make a task anyway, you could probably just do it just off of the contact, right? And just include some of the email information in there. And then the person will probably be able to be like, oh, they're talking about this deal. And then
that's it. So if you don't want to tackle the deluge, that'd be a good workaround.
Yeah, this one comes from the Right Price Real Estate Group, who commented on our last CRM Zen show, asking, does Zoho have a migration tool like Zoho Click for Microsoft Teams to migrate Microsoft OneNote into Zoho Note? Unfortunately, they do not. I was looking into this, and Zoho Note does have a few migration tools, but as of right now, they only have migration tools for Evernote, Google Keep, and then Zoho Mail Notes. Now, you could use Zoho Flow. This would be very long and tedious, and it would take, because there's no batch work that you're going to be able to do when creating notes in Zoho Notebook or pulling them from OneNote. But Zoho can fetch a OneNote note by ID. So what you could do, and again, this is big ask here, but if you were to export all of your Microsoft notes with the ID in some kind of spreadsheet that then you could upload to Zoho Sheets or Google Sheets, whatever, and then create a Zoho Flow schedule that would fetch, chunks of rows of those notes from that spreadsheet, and then use Zoho Flow to just import them into Zoho Notebook one by one. So in that sense, technically doable, but boy, at what cost?
Yeah, that's like one of those ones where you just don't know what's going to be in that notes data. Are there attached files? Are there images? You definitely would want a migration tool ideally for something like that.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. I think this one is for me. Another question from Beat Z. I get the Beat Z questions today. So this is also asked over in AZAAZ. Field types with disadvantages. And Greg, I'll ask you to chime in here because I know you played around with this a little bit. So I'll try to remember what we found, but fact check me on it. So BT asks, when setting up CRM, I was not aware that some field types have disadvantages, like not being able to be shown in a list view or related list. For example, a user field can be helpful for selecting a user, but if I want to show this field in the list view of CRM, I need to add a pick list field, adding the new users manually because you're not able to kind of automatically add them. Another example, if I had a multi-line field, by default, it is a large field with 3,200 characters, which does not show up in my list as well. Apart from these two, are there any other field types where with time, we would realize we have chosen the wrong field because of disadvantages not obvious in advance. Will I be warned when I delete a field after having moved its content to another, in the case that that field is used in any workflow, blueprint, etc.? So a couple questions here. So I've got the full thing up in front of me. So Greg, we were kind of playing around on a few of these things. I know there are a handful of fields that are not able to be shown everywhere, like users and like large multi-lines. We did find that those large multi-lines are not the default unless you've used all of the smaller ones. So it could be a module with kind of a lot of data on it, I think is what we found there, Greg. Am I right?
Yes. So you are allowed 10 small multi-line fields per module. So if you already have 10, and here's the thing, you might have some unused small multi-line fields, right? So even if you don't currently have 10 multi-line fields on there, maybe you have some that are from either a different layout or maybe that you've replaced with something else, and you haven't actually deleted the field. You've simply moved it to kind of the recycle bin, as it were, in the unused fields list. And so you would need to remove those if you wanted to add more small fields that are indexable.
Got it.
Yep. And then after that, you can continue to add multi-line fields, but they will all default to and be forced to be the large unsearchable fields.
Gotcha. So that gets that one. A couple other the questions as a part of here. Are there any other field types that have limitations? I mean, multi-select user fields are going to have similar limitations. I would say when in doubt, use a decimal field over a number, unless you are running out of them, because you might find more use cases for having fractions later. People can outgrow those. Other than that, though, I mean, I would avoid using file upload fields just in general, right? Use WorkDrive and create folders there. So it's a general best practice. Any other field types, guys, that you particularly stay away from? I feel like those are kind of the common offenders that don't work how you would think they do.
There's some things with like multi-selects that you have to be careful with. For example, as of right now, multi-selects cannot be used in any client scripting, which is something that we found out the hard way. Also with multi-selects, this is something that we've talked about before, I think on another AZAAZ, but that, if you're using a multi-select in any kind of filters, you have to have, you can only do contains, right?
Yeah.
To see like what options are in there. So if you have started and not started as like options in a multi-select, obviously those shouldn't be ever at the same time. So that's a bad example. But yeah, that you can get into issues with some of the filtering with those.
Subforms. I'm not sure if you already mentioned it, but subforms can be tricky in both reporting, but also custom workflows. I try to stick with just custom modules linked to a module if I need some sort of data relationship. So they are there, but subforms are tricky at times as well.
Yeah. And then the last question there about if they're going to delete a field, right? If they need to make room for new ones, are you going to get warnings about that field's use in other places? You don't get warnings about its use in like say any like custom functions, for example. But you do get warnings if that field is being used in another layout.
Yeah. Or if it's in a blueprint or workflow rule, I believe it does do a pop-up.
Elevation
but
rule.
not when you move it to unused, only if you actually try to delete it completely. Then it will actually do it. But it'll do a pop-up and it'll point out that it's used in configuration. But like you mentioned, Greg, not scripts. So if like it's a number and you're converting it to a decimal, that math function in the script is going to break. And it's not going to tell you that that's about to happen.
Or email templates.
And with delete, I was going to say, unless your coder was very, very smart and went ahead and already turned those values into floats anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
The thing about deleting fields is that if you have analytics integration turned on, they can delete your SQL tables and pivot views and all that. So
Good call out.
be very be very careful about
if you
deleting
sync
fields.
that field to Zoho Analytics, be extra careful because it will delete any reports, dashboards, data sets that you made in SQL that reference that value. Now they'll live in the trash spot or trash can for a while, and you can restore them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to take a whole process if you're doing like big reformatting in the system.
It's 45 days they see it in the trash can, but if you need them back, you need to ask Zoho. You can't do it yourself. So yeah, be careful. Michael asks in the AZAAZ forum again. Hello, Zenatta. Is there a way to embed movable Google Street View inside of Zoho CRM in a related field using the current leads property address? Thank you. So this one is actually possible. We can create widgets inside that will live in the record in the CRM, and they look pretty good, but you will need your Google API for that and some custom JavaScript to get it done. But it's certainly very possible, and it will look very good.
Another question from Michael, and guess what? The answer to this one's going to be pretty similar. Hello, Zenatta. There used to be a Zillow extension in CRM that Zoho provided, which was great, but they got rid of it. Is there a way to implement something similar within CRM using a related field? Currently, I just have a URL link that opens a separate tab with Zillow, but I wanted to have something like the old Zoho extension with Zillow if possible. Now, I never used the Zillow extension, so I don't know exactly what all of its particular capabilities were. But what you could do is, again, would require some custom JavaScript, but you could essentially just create an iframe of a widget that searches Zillow's website based on the address, and you'd be able to get kind of that Zillow listing. You wouldn't really be able to pull any like data from it because Zillow likes to keep all of its APIs and things like that under lock and key unless you are a certified realtor. So it's just kind of a slight step above clicking on the URL link that you've already got. It would basically just be smaller and below the record.
Yeah. But Greg, that's pretty much what the old Zillow plugin was doing. It was pretty much just like an iframe or an embed in of like the Zillow data that you get when you search, right? Like on the site. So that actually probably get pretty darn close.
It was like SalesIQ where you would have like a Zillow field of like you know how like SalesIQ,
like tracking and everything. There might have been a couple odds and ends like that. There could have been a few odds and ends in that way. But I guess if you were, a real estate agent with access to the API, then you might be able to get even more of that functionality kind of built out. Tough for us to know exactly because they don't show it to us because we're not real estate agents. So we just have to guess on that one a little bit. Alrighty. Well, thank you, Lucas, for joining today. I think we have wrapped up all of our questions. Thanks, as always, Josh and Greg. Pleasure being with you guys, except when Greg makes fun of me in front of all of our community here. But that's what you sign up for. Alrighty, I guess we can get to our outro. Sweet. Well, thank you for stopping by. If you want to get in touch with Zenatta and get some help on your Zoho instance, just head on over to zenatta.com and drop us a line. On the website is also where you'll find all of our podcasts, where we cover all the news and updates in the world of Zoho every single week. If you want that news delivered to your inbox on Monday morning, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. And as always, we would love and appreciate if you would like and subscribe here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next Wednesday.